today I'm going to answer this question that I get asked quite a bit by people I come across. And that question is, which plant is right for you? Welcome to Mixed in Plants and Crafts. My name is Rachel, and today I'll answer that question with 6 tips to help you decide. I remember asking this question to myself as well when I first got started with houseplants, and it's quite evolved over the years, so I'm excited to share these tips with you. So the first thing we'll talk about is which plants should you choose for your lifestyle. You're probably going to go to the internet to find out what plant should you choose. Now the internet will probably tell you something like pothos or snake plants. Now I have nothing against pothos or snake plants, but pothos, they're hard for me. I've killed quite a few since I've started this hobby. I would probably not recommend pothos to someone unless they do have the time to dedicate to caring for it. Now, I would say a snake plant is a bit more easygoing and forgiving and easy care, but they can be a little boring. Let me get my snake plant. This snake plant, they've been this size for quite some time, and I put 3 in a pot to get it like a full pot, but they are growing, but they're slowly growing. And the last time I watered this was probably September. They just sit there in the sun and hopefully will continue to grow over the years, but it is quite a slow growing plant. If you're looking for a different kind of plants, I would suggest going to a nursery to see if they can help you find the right plant for you. Usually at a nursery, they are a bit more attentive and their plants are a little bit more cared for. I have a few nurseries here and I have gone to them with questions. I've confused them, and one of them was able to answer my question. So they do give you a little bit more attention. If you are looking for something easy, fun, and a little dramatic, I do have 3 plants that I would recommend you try. Okay, so this plant is a spider plant, and it is a very common plant. You can probably find this at any nursery, even your friend's house who's into plants. Low budget, it is dramatic and a lot of fun. So when I say dramatic is when this plant needs water, it will tell you. The leaves will get really pale and you give it a drink and the next day it's back to vibrant green again. This one I will probably be needing to water soon. It's getting a little pale already. And the other fun thing about this plant is that it gives you spider babies. I love this about the plant, and these plants you're able to give to your friends that come over your house because you just have lots of plants to give, and you get your friends also into houseplants as well. It is a very low maintenance plant. It tells me it needs water. This plant actually grows really quickly. I water it when it needs to, and then I get these spider babies. Very, very fun plant. Highly recommend. Okay, so the next plant is a Pilea peperomioides, also known as Chinese money plant, also known as the French plant. Now, this plant for me is an easy care plant. I just water it and it grows. So I don't really do much with it. I've not really lost a lot of leaves with this plant. For me, it's a very easygoing plant and it's a lot of fun. So let me tell you why this plant is so fun. This plant will also give you lots of babies, and the babies come out sometimes right there. Right there, there's a baby. There's another one right here. And there's tons coming out of the pot. I actually harvested about 8 babies from this plant earlier this year. It just keeps giving me babies. You can share this plant with your friends. The other thing, it blooms. This plant is also known as the artillery plant. In spring, you will see some blooms come up. The blooms are kind of plain. They kind of resemble baby's breath. But the one cool thing about the blooms is that once it blooms, after a while, the blooms will fire off little dust of pollen in the air. And it's a fun thing to see. So I highly recommend this plant. And this plant, you can probably find it at any of the nurseries. And actually, another plant friend will have tons of babies to give you. So another fun plant I highly recommend. So the next plant I highly recommend is a heartleaf philodendron. This plant is very common and a lot of offices have this plant. I've seen it a lot there. This plant is a medium growing plant if you had give it the right conditions. I had this plant about 2 years ago as a cutting, a one leaf cutting, and this is how much it's grown for me. It's a fun plant. The leaves are shaped as a heartleaf philodendron. It's very easygoing and a nice trailing classic green houseplant that is definitely fun to have around. The spider plant is the faster going one. This will be number 2. The Pilea peperomioides would be number 3. And snake plant would be 4 because the snake plant is the slowest one to grow. Highly recommend the heartleaf philodendron. When getting a plant that's right for you, you should consider the light and climate of your home. Matching the plant to the right light in your home is critical. You'll see a lot of plants in the stores labeled as low light plants. That really just means it can tolerate low light. All plants need light. Without light, it's not going to grow. If you have your snake plant in a low light spot, it's probably not growing. Did you know that snake plants bloom? If you give your snake plant the right condition to thrive, you will see blooms from it. Don't be fooled by those labels that say low light plant. So think about where you're going to place that plant when you come home. Near a window is always a good idea. Rather than a place away from the window, like on the nightstand or kitchen counter where there is no window. So the other thing is climate of your home, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So this window right here is a west window where it's a good amount of light, and on the bottom is an AC vent. A lot of homes have this here. I'm not sure if you have the same thing, but let me flip the camera. I do have a cover here to cover the vent so the air wouldn't go to the plants. Instead, the air is going out this way. I do have those vent covers on most of the vent where there's plants, because if the air touches the plant, it will stress out and dry out the plant. Speaking from experience on this one, it actually killed a few of my plants when I first moved into this home. This is not something that we dealt with at our old house. It was new for me last year. Talking about light, a south window will receive the most intense light throughout the day. An east window provides soft morning light, which is really great for a lot of plants. Now, a west window, what I showed you earlier, is intense afternoon light, and it's good for plants that can tolerate that kind of light. I do know that the plants I have on the still can, and those are Hoyas. Now, this window right here is a north window, and I actually have supplemental light right there for these plants because a north window will give you the lowest light. Number 3 would be to consider your schedule. Some plants are low maintenance, like the snake plant, and that plant is quite forgiving and easygoing. If you are a busy person and don't have time to care for that plant, the snake plant would be a perfect plant for you. So now if you do have a little bit more time and want to dedicate a little bit more attention to a plant, I would recommend getting something like a prayer plant that needs a little bit more attention and regular watering and checks. That plant would be another fun plant to have around. The next one, number 4, would be to consider kids and pets. Plant safety is something to think about. When I say that, I mean some plants can be toxic. There are plants out there that have a high toxicity level and a low toxicity level. There are some plants that's also labeled as non-toxic, like the spider plant. If you have kids and pets around that will interfere with the plants and nibble on it, definitely don't want to have a toxic plant at their level. The next point I want to talk about is plant growth style. This one's a little weird one because I didn't consider this when I first started getting into houseplants. So you have to think about how a plant grows. Does it grow up? Does it trail down? Does it spread out? All these things would affect where it fits in your home. Let me show you what I'm talking about. A spider plant would be kind of an upright plant, even though the leaves will droop down. But later on, it turns into a trailing plant because of the spider babies. So that is something to consider, because if this plant was sitting on your countertop, all these babies would need a place to go. This one would be an example of an upright plant. And this one would be an example of a trailing plant. Now, when you get a plant, sometimes it's not going to be trailing. A lot of places like nurseries or even big box stores, they sell the plant with cuttings in here and it's just sitting on the top. And over time, your plant will start to grow and trail. Would you have place for this plant? Another plant that didn't start off like this is a begonia. So this plant is a plant that spreads out. There is another begonia that I have that spread out so much it took my whole table space in the kitchen. So you have to consider these things because the plant will spread out and then you'll have to find a place to put it because it will take up a lot of space. The next segment I'm going to talk about is plan for future growth. That is also not something I thought about when I was first starting out with houseplants. You bring home a tiny plant in a cute little plant pot and you put it in a cute little spot, and before you know it, that plant is going to grow up. Some plants will outgrow that space quickly, and another thing, it will also outgrow the pot that you have it in. So you will have to repot sooner than you think. So always consider future growth when you're getting a houseplant. I have a houseplant that I'll show you that just a year ago came home and it was small and cute and in a cute pot. And before you know it, it grew up. I had to move it to a space. I moved it right over here. Let's go visit that plant now. So this is my begonia maculata, and as you can see, she has definitely changed from when she came home just a year ago. She is now at a south window, a few feet away from it, and that is where she's going to have her home, probably her forever home now, because this is a pretty big space. So I hope the tips that I shared today was able to help you with choosing what plant would fit your lifestyle. Always do your research when getting a house plant. I know a lot of us, especially me, when I first started with house plants, I would buy things without doing my research and research it later. It is still a better idea to do some research beforehand. YouTube is a great place to get information about a plant that you're considering and a great place to hear about somebody else's experience with it. Let me know in the comments if you are considering getting houseplants. Also, if you are an advanced plant person, let me know which plants were your beginner plants. My beginner plant was a peace lily because it was given to me as a gift. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.